Hey there, guys. Just John back here again. In this video, going to finally give you my AEW All Out review from Sunday night. I did end up buying the show. Needless to say, an incredible show. I would say a historic show. To the overall industry in general. I just pretty blown away by everything that went down here, and just what this is all going to mean, because we saw some pretty big returns, some pretty big debuts here, and so we'll just get right into it. So we kicked off the show for the TNT Championship between Miro versus Eddie Kingston. A really good match. This was just a straight up fight here, and like Miro, he retains as expected, and they did leave this open for a possible return match, which I do think is going to happen at some point. Maybe that happens at Arthur Ashe. So a really good match. Then we had like Jon Moxley versus Satoshi Kojima. It was okay. And like Moxley wins. Wasn't entirely crazy about this. As I said in my preview for the show, but like Moxley wins, and then after he wins, we get the debut of Suzuki, which that was pretty surprising. Which I'm kicking myself, like, oh yeah, he's in the States. Like, it made so much sense. So he shows up, and him and like Mox fight, and then he eventually lays him out. So and it was also announced that we are getting Jon Moxley versus Suzuki this week on AEW Dynamite. So that should be really good there. Then we had the AEW Women's Championship between Dr. Britt Baker DMD versus Chris Statlander. Easily the best title defense for Dr. Britt Baker. I really popped when she did the Pittsburgh Sunrise. That was cool. And yeah, just a like really solid title match here. She wins, yeah. So no real complaints there. Then we had the AEW Tag Team Championships inside of a steel cage, between the Bucks versus Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix the Lucha Brothers. This was match of the freaking night, which I pretty much had the feeling that this was going to be. Just the crowd was just completely behind the Lucha Brothers, and it was just a very fun match, an easy match to just stay into, and we get new AEW Tag Team Champions, Pentagon, El Cero Miedo, and Ray Phoenix. This was a pretty cool moment here, and we did see we also saw a special entrance too for these guys, and I had a pretty good feeling that they were going over, especially with how Dynamite ended, and they also give them a special entrance on top of that. I'm like, I'll be really surprised if we don't get new tag team champions, and that is exactly what happened here. So yeah, awesome freaking title match. Tag team wrestling is just, it can be really damn fun. Then we had the women's casino battle royale. So in group one, we had Sheida, Sky Blue, Emi Sakura, Punny, and Abaddon. In group two, we had Anna Jay, Kara Hogan, Kylan King, Diamante, and like Nyla Rose. Group 3, we had like Thunder Rosa, Penelope Ford, Riho, like Jamie Hayter, and like and Pick Swole. In Group 4, we had Ty Conti, Red Velvet, Layla Hirsch, Jade Cargill, and Rebel. And in the Joker spot, we had the debuting Ruby Soho, formerly Ruby Riott in WWE, and she makes her debut here. And man, it got a really good reaction, and she ends up winning this here. I wasn't entirely sure that they were gonna put her in a spot to actually win, but I'm not complaining. This is going to set up a really good title match between her versus Doctor Baker. That's going to be arguably the company's best women's title match. Has a really good chance to pass Britt versus Thunder Rosa as far as the best overall women's match in AEW there. So really excited about that. One complaint I did have about this match was, man, what are we doing with Sheida? Like she got shafted badly, and I'm kind of trying to figure out like what we're actually doing with her here. So that was weird. And just like this company's just like love for Nyla Rose. Like I feel like she got booked way too strongly here. I don't understand why they just didn't have like Jade in that spot. Like give her a really good showing here. And she like held her own, but I do wish that they would have featured her like a little bit more over a like Nyla Rose. But that being said, a really good match here. Now we're at the point now with this women's division right now. We need to start to see better, consistent stories, more like matches. I want to see people such as Thunder Rosa, Tay Conti, Sheida, Ruby Soho, like Jamie Hayter. They have a really good women's roster right now. It's arguably, I mean, like, obviously outside of WWE, it's easily the best, the best roster in the world right now. So, like, there is no excuse for them not to feature these people on TV in like multiple segments. Now we are at that point, so I'm hoping that's eventually where things eventually go. All right, then we had the final fight: Chris Jericho versus MJF. Laughed my ass off when MJF did the old Chris Jericho countdown entrance to when Chris first showed up in the WWF. So like that was cool. And Chris Jericho's entrance, yeah, it was bad. Like they did the whole guitar solo, and the crowd didn't really know the like lyrics of the song. It was bad. I just don't know why they just didn't just do it how they like normally do it. But this is pretty much what I expected. I didn't think that they were going to have Jericho lose a fourth time here. And just having him lose, I'm like, I just can't see him retiring. And now, with him winning, I'm hoping that this ends this godforsaken feud between these two. If they didn't have that freaking third match, 2 weeks ago, I would have been a little bit more invested into this, and not to say that the actual match itself was bad. Just I didn't really care as much. So we'll kind of see where that goes. I'm wondering too, like what else? Where do these guys go? So and everything involving the inner circle between them and the freaking Pinnacle. We need to split those people away. I'm sick of seeing them on the TV at the same time. Let's just freaking end that, please. So then we get to probably the most anticipated thing on the show as far as the advertised things. CM Punk versus Darby Allin, the first match for CM Punk in over 7 years since he walked out of WWE. I felt that this was really good here. Was it perfect? No. Punk, was he probably a little bit rusty? Yeah. But I didn't really have any complaints here. It was a little bit slower, but it eventually built up. Darby, he was Darby. He was good. He got in some pretty good offense. Punk, he wins. As he should have. I didn't have really any complaints about this. Very interested to see where they go next for CM Punk. Do they start to involve him in feuds with either Kenny, or maybe do they go with him versus MJF, which I don't think that's probably the smartest thing to do, just because since he lost against Chris Jericho. So they could really do a whole bunch of things for CM Punk, and it's a good problem to freaking have, man. I'm really excited to see where they go with him next. Then we have QT Marshall versus Paul White. This was thankfully short. Did not care about this at all. I complained for a lot for this being on the show, but where this thing was actually placed was the perfect thing, because it gave the audience a time just to relax and everything after that match there. So I didn't have any problems with this. Paul White, he wins. Now hopefully, with this being over, we keep QT Marshall off of TV, because he shouldn't be on TV with the amount of talent that is on this freaking roster. So yeah. Then we get to the main event for the AEW Championship: Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage. The actual match itself, it was fine, but me with a lot of other people weren't really as into it, just because we were all more interested to what was going to be happening after the fact, and this wasn't a pay-per-view level of a match here. If this was Kenny versus Hangman, I feel like this crowd would have been way more into this, but it just wasn't all that interesting. I mean, everyone knew Kenny, he wasn't losing a second time against Christian Cage, so there just really wasn't any reason to get invested. So obviously Kenny, he wins, and that's when the interesting things started. So we had Kenny cutting a promo, telling or saying who else is there, blah blah blah. I being everyone, and the only people who haven't beat me are either gone, retired, or dead. We then see with the lights, they go out, and who do we see? Not Bryan Danielson, but Adam freaking Cole makes his All Elite Wrestling debut. He comes out, he's staring down the Elite, acting like he's going to be in opposition to them, but it turns out he super kicks Jungle Boy and gives a hug to Matt and Nick Jackson, and he is part of the Elite. He gets on the mic saying that they are the most powerful faction currently in wrestling, and Kenny said, hey man, he's our best friend. Why would we hurt him? So then Kenny, he talks again, and he's about to do and say goodbye. But before that happens, we get the second biggest the debut of the night, and that is a debut of Bryan Danielson, which I kind of had a feeling that was going to come. I'm like, there's no way that this is just going to end like that. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. He comes out to a huge reaction. He stares down the elite, and then Bryan, along with Christian Cage and Jurassic Express, they start to fight with the elite. Bryan, he eventually lays out like Nick Jackson, and the show goes off the air with Bryan, Cage, and Jurassic Express standing tall. Holy shit, what a show, to say the freaking least. I had a blast watching this. The show just really remind you again of how cool wrestling how it can really be. Just the overall flow of the show, along with the actual wrestling, and the special moments that happen were so damn cool. And it's going to be very interesting now to see how this new steam that the company is getting, how it's going to affect with their TV for both Dynamite and like Rampage. I feel like that Dynamite is going to see a viewership increase, and by all accounts, All Out will have their biggest pay-per-view buy rate ever. The Observer, they were saying that this would be the highest pay-per-view non-WWE buy rate since 1999. So you're thinking what, like 150 to 175 maybe. I mean, if they get 200,000, I mean, Jesus Christ. So for that, you're like, okay, that would be a very, really successful show, and also kind of just describe it, just how much buzz that was surrounding this show. Not on top of that, with CM Punk's first match in over 7 years. So now, Tony Khan has signed in the past 4 weeks, in the past month, CM Punk, Ruby Soho, Adam Cole, and Bryan Danielson, along with people such as like Malachi Black and Andrade. All of these people have been signed with in the last 6 months. That WWE just either just let them slip through their fingers, or just couldn't re-sign them in the cases of Adam Cole and Daniel Bryan. And just hearing what they had to say after the show in the post show scrum, is that for Cole and Danielson, it had nothing to do with them being unhappy in a company. It was so appealing to come over here, whether it was the people in the company, with the relationship with the fans, creative freedom, being able to pretty much work over in Japan, and making pretty good cash. Like, it's just, like, it's really says a lot to how much things have changed for all elite wrestling, and two, how much it's not as appealing being in WWE. Like, there's a new company that is just so hot right now. It's a really exciting time right now. I can tell you right now, like, we had this show, and then there was an episode of like Raw last night, which, if you can see the freaking differences between the shows, and like, it's just like, if you hated All Out, like thought that it was a terrible show, I would seriously question why you're still a fan then, because I feel like it gave you a little bit of everything on the show. Like, if you can't take at least one or two things away that you really liked, then it's pretty much, I don't know what to exactly tell you other than maybe professional wrestling really isn't for you at this point. But I had a freaking blast. Really interested to see what's going to happen. Now we have Arthur Ashe in like about 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I mean, like, that's gonna be coming up pretty quick. We also had announced on this show that AEW Full Gear will not be happening on the 6th of like November. Thank God. It will actually be happening on like 13th, which would be a week after the MSG card for UFC 268. So I'm pretty happy about that. And it was supposed to be in St. Louis, but apparently that is off, or so we think. And in one of the spots that is being speculated right now, I believe is like Minneapolis, which that would be interesting there. So yeah, a lot of things are happening for All Elite Wrestling, and I could not be happier. So yeah, guys, that was my review of the show. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you leave a comment, a like, follow us on Twitter at MJ Make a Podcast. I'll be over there constantly tweeting whatever like news, giving you and give you my opinions and stuff. So yeah, for John, I shall see you guys later. Take it easy.